Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's tutorial, I want to talk to you about Vizro. Vizro is a new Python library that sits on top of Plotly and Dash that allows you to create these beautiful data apps in the quickest and easiest way that I know of. Right? In this example, which I'm going to share in a link under the video, you have five different pages in this multi-page app. And it's incredibly easy to not only create each page, but the controls for each page and the graphs themselves as the main content of the page. And we're going to see how to do that today. So under the video, you're going to have this link so you can see this page. I'm going to give you the quick start, the link to the Vizro documentation, and also we are going to go through 5 different apps together today, so you get a better understanding of the most important elements or foundation of the Vizro library. Right? I'm going to teach you how to create data apps using Vizro with Plotly and Express graphs. So my recommendation is you download these Python files that is in my GitHub, because it's going to be a lot easier for you to follow along. Once you download them, or at least copy everything into your own PyCharm or VS Code, restart the video and open filter_data.py file, this file right here, filter_data.py file. Now, for this to run successfully in your computer, you will have to pip install Vizro, right? Just go into your terminal and pip install Vizro, and you might have to install Dash as well, but pip install Vizro. Now, this main page, let's start it. Let's go into the filter data page. Let's run it, or app. And we're going to click on this link to run the app. And here you'll see we have 2 graphs, and we have the control panel on the left, which is just a drop down that allows you to choose different variables, which updates the histogram. All right. So how do we do this? Let's take a look. Typically, in a Vizro app, you're going to have the top section, just like in Dash, where you import the libraries, right? Here we're importing Plotly Express within Vizro to be able to incorporate Plotly Express. We have our data set. This is an iris data set built in from Plotly Express, but you can incorporate your own data from your Excel sheet or CSV sheet or external database. And then we build the page like this with the Vizro model, page model, and then you put everything inside the page. Once the page is built, you assign the page to the pages property of the dashboard model, and then you run the dashboard like this. So this is very easy in my opinion, because this structure almost always looks the same. Libraries, data, building your page or multiple pages. You can do this multiple times for multi-page, and then you assign the pages to the dashboard and run the dashboard. That is it. What's important to remember is inside every VM page, you're going to have at minimum 3 different arguments: the title, the components, and the controls. Title is just the title of the page. See, my first dashboard. And by the way, this will automatically come with theme switcher, dark or light. You don't have to do anything in here. So you have the title, and then you have the components. In Vizro, we have, for now, 2 different components. We have the VM graph or the VM table. The VM graph will typically be the Plotly Express figures. We have over 100 figures in Plotly Express. Or you can put in there, like we do here, the VM table, right, inside the components. And the VM table sits on top of, it's a Dash data table, right? Hopefully soon there will be a Dash AG grid in there as well. For now, it's a Dash data table. So you have 2 options, VM graph or table. In this case, we're putting 2 graphs inside our components. So as you can see here, we have 2 graphs, the scatter plot and the histogram. Now, we have the controls. The controls will typically take two different models, either the filter model or the VM parameter, the parameter model, right? So what's the difference? We're going to see in this file parameters.py and parameters example2.py. We're going to see different parameters, and in this file we're going to see the filter model. The difference between the filter and the parameter is that the filter will filter the data set of a certain graph, while the parameter model doesn't filter a data set. It actually tackles the attributes of the Plotly Express graph, right? We'll go over this in a sec. Let's start with the filter. So in this case, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I put this sentence here to help you understand what's going on. In this case, by assigning this column to data frame column to the column argument, the drop down to the selector, and the target, what we're doing is we're saying filter the data frame, the DF, of the target graph. What is a target graph? Histogram chart. So here's your histogram chart. So filter this data frame, this DF only, by column sepal width, by this column. And using the drop down, using the selector. In this case, the selector is the drop down. So that is all we are doing here. We know that this DF is exactly the same as this one, but the DF, the data set, has a sepal width column right here. So I'm going to filter this DF that belongs to this histogram using on the sepal width column using the drop down. Right? And notice that you don't have to define the drop-down options. They will automatically be the sepal width. Here you see, these are the sepal width options, 3.5, 3.0. This is just the first 5 rows, but there's many different unique values in the sepal width. So every time I update the sepal width, let's make this, I update the sepal width drop-down option, I'm actually filtering the data frame to only include these rows or these values under the sepal width column. And with this filtered data frame, the histogram is then filtered. The histogram is then replotted to show only those rows, right? 2.2, let's do 2.3 and 2.4. Now you can see that it's only from 2.2 to 2.4 instead of all. All right? So that's important to remember. It's filtering the data set, which updates the histogram chart. Now, let's look at parameters. If you open the parameters.py file and the parameters example2.py, everything here is the same. Let's look at parameters.py. We're importing the libraries, we're importing a data set, 2 data sets. We're building our page, which has title, components, and controls, just like we had here, title, components, and controls. And then at the end, we pass the page to the dashboard, and we build and execute the dashboard, right? And this is how we have the dashboard display. I'm going to run parameters, run, refresh, and here's our new dashboard. The difference here, the similarity between this file, parameters and filter, is that we have the title and we have components, which will be 2 graphs, right? Title and the components, there will be 2 separate graphs, a scatter chart and a histogram chart, the same. But the difference is in the controls, instead of using VM filter, we're going to use the VM parameter. Now the parameter allows you to use certain selectors, the drop down, the range slider, the checkbox, use these selectors to update attributes of a certain graph. And that's important to remember. That's the main difference. Let's take a look at how this works. Here, I'm going to say what this is doing, this VM parameter with the selector and the targets, what we're doing is we're going to use the drop down to update or target, same thing, the X attribute of the scatter chart or scatter plot. And you see the x attribute of the scatter plot. So anytime we change anything in the drop down, we have two options here. We have to define the options, sepal length or sepal or petal length. Every time we update this, it will take this value and it will update the x-axis, in other words, this one, of the scatter chart. You'll update this. So we start off with what? With sepal length. You can see here sepal length at the x-axis, but if we change this to petal length, now this x-axis changed to petal length because this will change. This will be petal length chosen, and then this will be the petal length. All right, but this is happening only because we're targeting the x attribute. We can target other attributes, right? Let's look at the link right here. This is all the attributes of all the high-level attributes of Plotly Express scatter plot, right? All of this. We're tackling the x, but we can tackle the color with the size. We can change anything we want if we put this inside. If we want to change the hover data or maybe size, we'll put size in here instead of the x. We'll put size because we know that size is another attribute of the scatter chart. Let's look at an example. We're going to see this example right here. Click on this. This is the histogram. The histogram has many different attributes. We're going to tackle the range attribute, range y attribute right here, which defines the range on the y-axis of the histogram, this range right here on the y-axis, what's visible. So how do we do that? First of all, we have our histogram chart you see right here. Continent, y-axis is the GDP per cap, but we're going to define the range y as 0 to 5 million. You can see here, if we refresh. This data saves, so we're just going to refresh. 0 to 5 million on the top, on the left, and then we're going to say use the range slider to update, to target the range y attribute of the histogram, right? This range y. So whenever I change the minimum and maximum points, it's going to update this list right here that you can see of the range y. If I say 0 to 7 million, now this will be 0 to 7 million because that's what I changed in the range slider. And because I updated this range y, now you'll see that it's 0 to 7 million. Let's do 8 million right there. Let's do 9 million, 6 million, 3 million. So it's just like that. Let me refresh. No, first of all, we've got to run this app actually. Let's go right there. Parameters. Okay. Now we ran it. Refresh. Y range axis 3 million to 6 million, or maybe 3 million to 9 million. You see how it updates the y axis. So let's see one other example, parameters 2. Here we're going to update, we're going to take the drop down. Let's actually load this. You can run it so you can see. Parameters 2, execute. Now we're just going to say true or false. This is editable right now. You see, I just edit it. If I put false, this is non-editable. See, I'm clicking on the mouse click, nothing, I can't do anything with it. Now, how do I do that? This is because I'm using the drop-down options, either true or false, to update the editable property of the table, right? Here's a table, the ID, and you can see here, dash data table, it has the editable property. We start off by true, but as soon as we change this to false, this editable becomes false right here, and we cannot edit it. You don't even have to include this. Just by knowing that editable exists as a property of the dash data table, you can then say this is what you want to target. And by targeting it, anytime you change something on the drop down, it will update the editable property, right? Okay, so this is very, very important to make this distinction. The VM parameter, the parameter model of Vizro is used to connect between selectors and the the graph or the table properties, right, or attributes, right here, properties and attributes, X, Y, color of Plotly Express. The filter model is used to filter the data frame of the graphs or table used, right? That's the difference. All right, let's take a look at actions. Action is slightly different. There's two actions right now with Vizro. One is filter interaction and one is extract data. You'll see on this main website that they put the extract data action here, export data into this dashboard, which is another function. But besides export data, you have the filter interaction. All right, let's start the action.py file. Let's run it. Let's go here. And here we see that if we click on a continent, it will update the scatter plot so it only shows that continent, right? The color stays the same, but you'll see here Americas, Africa, it changes the continent that is used in the GDP per cap. And if you refresh, it will show everything. So that's what an action allows you to do. The filter action is not a control, right? There is not a control on the left side. There's no selectors. There's no drop down or checklist or range slider, but it's like the dash callback. It's similar to the dash callback. It allows you to have data on two different graphs or tables interact with each other, right? That's the difference. You don't need controls. You're just allowing the data, the user the user of your app to have the data between 2, 3, 4, 5 graphs interact with each other. How do we do that? We have to add the action property to the component's argument, right? So we build a page, just like we build a page here with filter data, but instead of two graphs in the actions.py file, we're going to have the title, the components, and in the component, we will have two graphs, but the second graph is going to be just a normal graph scatter plot, but the first graph is where the action happens. What we are saying here, by saying VM action, function, filter, action, target, this line of code, line 25, is saying clicking the custom data. We added this custom data here. This is part of Plotly Express. Every Plotly Express graph has a custom data attribute. Clicking the custom data, in this case continent, of the box plot will filter or target the data frame on the continent column of the Gapminder scatter graph. So it's a long, long sentence, but if you read it 2 or 3 times while interacting with the graph, you should be able to understand. We're just saying whenever somebody clicks on the continent, on a certain continent of this box plot, because we put custom data continent, it will update the data frame belonging to the target, belonging to this scatter plot, right? So it doesn't modify necessarily the scatter plot, it just modifies DF Gapminder so it only includes this continent that was chosen. In other words, it's doing something like this. It's saying, if I click on Africa right here, what it does, Europe, Africa, I'm just saying now the DF Gapminder is going to be equal to Gapminder. Let's filter it where Gapminder continent is equal to Africa. That's all I'm doing. And now this new, because I just updated it with Africa, I clicked on it, DF Gapminder. Now this will be the new DF Gapminder, right? Or Gapminder 2, whatever. Now this will be Gapminder 2. That's all we're doing with this action. Right now, Vizro has 2 actions: to filter interaction, allowing data between graphs and tables to interact with each other or to update each other by filtering the data frame, and the export data. These are 2 functions available in the action model. Vizro said it's going to add more actions and more customizable actions, so we'll see what we'll develop soon. Pretty excited about it. Last but not least, we have the multi-page app, right? I'm going to take a small break here. If so far you're learning a lot of how to build through my channel, how to build data apps in Python, Plotly, Dash, Vizro, you have my Patreon account if you'd like to support, show your love. Goes a long way, and thank you. Appreciate you. All right, so the multi-page app. Let's go into the multi-page app to show you how multi-pages are built. Because you already know how to build one page, this should be fairly easy, fairly intuitive. Go to the multi-page app.py, open it, and you'll see we have two pages here, page 1, page 2. How do we do this? Well, we build a page just like we built before with title, components, and controls, or no controls. You don't have to have controls always. And we call it page 1. And then we build another page, and we'll call it page 2, and so on and so on. Page 3, page 4, whatever we want. Once we have all our pages, we assign the pages as inside a list to the pages argument of the dashboard, and then we run the dashboard. That is it, right? So here, if we go back to the filter data, if we wanted another page, we would just do like this. We'll call this page 2, and it will be exactly the same as page 1. Maybe we'll change the title, my second page, and then we just assign page 2 right here. And voila, you will have a multi-page app, right? So in this case, we have two pages. The first page will have one control. It will have the drop-down belonging to the filters the species column, page 1. Let's change the species column to Setosa and versicolor. And then we'll have page 2, which has another graph, a sunburst, which will have a filter and a parameter. Page 2 will have this drop down, Americas and Europe, and we'll have the parameter to change the influence the color column, right? Or what column is part of the color. And if you go back to page 1 and go back to page 2, these chosen variables, chosen values have been saved, right? Everything is underneath this line right here, this horizontal line, all the controls. And this is automatic. This navigation bar on the left is automatic, but you can customize it by going to the Vizro documentation and looking at the navigation accordion, I think, right here. It'll teach you how to customize it. Here you see the only customization is the path world order. So this is what you're going to see right here. See, world order. Page 1 doesn't have anything. It's the home page. Page 2, we'll call it world order, or page 2, whatever you want to call it. All right, so that's it. This was a very general overview of Vizro and how to create data apps in the quickest way possible. Vizro is a unique tool built by McKinsey, and they're continuing developing it, and it's so powerful because it sits on top of Plotly and Dash. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you get to build many things with it. Share under the video what you get to build. I'd love to see it. And that's really it. If you want to support this channel and this content, we have my Patreon over there. If you want to just send a comment, encourage you to write something in the video comment section. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Always remember, we're better together, so help each other out. Always help each other out. Have a good one.